Welcome to this webinar on how to obtain a certificate of compliance. This presentation is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal advice or legal interpretation. The presentation discusses how to close a loan in the APLD and obtain the certificate of compliance necessary for recording a mortgage. The APLD program is governed by Article 3 of the Residential Real Property Disclosure Act, RRPDA. It can be found beginning at 765 ILCS 77/70. We encourage you to read and review the statute often, as it may contain answers to many questions that might arise. In this webinar, we will cover a few topics. First, we will discuss how to navigate the data entry screens to close a loan, with practical tips on how to enter the data called for in each screen. Second, we will walk through how to create a certificate of compliance that you will attach to the mortgage before recording. First, you will use the Find Application function and perform a search using the borrower's Social Security number. You will then see the borrower's name, and you will be asked to confirm that you have located the correct borrower. Please note that when you search, you will only be able to see loan applications that have a certain status. If the borrower needed housing counseling and the housing counselor has not yet entered information about the counseling session, that application will not be visible to you. Also, if a broker or originator starts the APLD application and they don't enter all of the data that they are required to enter, then you will not be able to find the application with the search function. Basically, nothing will appear on your screen if the broker has started their required data entry but has not completed it. So once you access the borrower's application, the website will direct you to the property information screen. As you can see, this screen asks you to confirm certain information about the property. The information the broker or originator entered about the property is visible to you on this page, but you are asked to independently enter the information. Now, along the left-hand side, you can see the different screens that you will navigate through to complete your data entry. On the screens that contain a V, you can view information that the broker or originator has entered, but you do not need to enter any information on those particular screens. If the screen contains an O, that means data entry on that screen is optional. You will only need to enter data on that screen if it is applicable to this loan application. We will talk about each screen in this list where you are required to enter information now. On the loan information screen, you will see data that the broker or originator entered about whether the loan is a HELOC, refinance, or whether the property is in a trust. Then you are asked to enter the initial note rate for the loan and then answer a series of yes or no questions. Is the loan an interest-only loan? Does the interest rate adjust within 3 years? Does the loan have a prepayment penalty? Does the loan carry negative amortization? The terms referred to in these questions, interest-only, adjustable rate mortgage, prepayment penalty, and negative amortization, are defined in the law, the Residential Real Property Disclosure Act. A link to the Act will appear at the end of the webinar so that you can read the definitions of these terms. On the closer information screen, you should see all of your information. If your APLD account has administrative privileges for your company, you can assign a different closer from within your company to the APLD loan application on this screen. The law requires that you enter the names and addresses of all originators, brokers, appraisers, salespersons, attorneys, and surveyors that are present at the closing. This information gets entered on this third party screen. In the notices section, there are two separate screens. First, you can view the information that the broker submitted under the screen for loan estimate. Then on the list of notices screen, seen here, you are asked to answer yes or no as to whether certain notices have been provided to the borrower. Finally, there are two screens listed under the closing disclosure on the left-hand side. First, there's the closing disclosure entry form screen, and second, the closing disclosure image screen. Under the closing disclosure entry form displayed on this slide, the website prompts you to enter certain information from the closing disclosure. As you can see at the bottom of the page, there is a percentage being calculated for points and fees for this loan application. Any fees that you enter on this screen will factor into the calculation of the percentages of points and fees for this loan application. So where the website indicates a required field, you're only required to enter a fee onto the screen if you have determined that that fee would meet the definition of points and fees under the law. The department cannot advise you as to whether a particular type of fee falls under the definition of points and fees. You should consult the Residential Real Property Disclosure Act or your attorney. You are permitted, however, to omit from a required field any fee that may be on the closing disclosure that you have determined should not be included in the calculation of points and fees. Again, to reiterate, the required fields are not intended for you to include every fee that may appear on the closing disclosure. Rather, you only need to enter fees from the closing disclosure on this screen if you conclude that such fees should be included in the calculation of points and fees as defined by the law. As you may be aware, when the calculation of points and fees on the bottom of the screen exceeds 5% of the loan amount, the borrower is required to participate in a housing counseling session before closing on the loan. You will not be able to proceed to obtain a certificate of compliance until the borrower has received this counseling. This can also be true if other terms entered by the broker originator have changed and the broker originator did not update that information in the APLD loan application. For example, if the broker or originator marked that the loan was not interest only in the APLD loan application, but then changed the loan to interest only before closing, the borrower would be required to get housing counseling in that situation. Until the borrower gets counseling, you will be unable to proceed with obtaining a certificate of compliance. On this screen, you should upload the final accurate closing disclosure. Please upload a legible closing disclosure, which includes all pages of the closing disclosure in the PDF document. If the file size of your closing disclosure is too large to upload, please choose Print PDF and resave the file in an effort to reduce the file size. Alternatively, many PDF programs also have tools which would allow you to reduce the file size so that the whole file may be uploaded here. Again, it's important to upload the whole closing disclosure into the APLD. Once all of the data has been entered on each of the screens we just reviewed and the closing disclosure has been uploaded, you can click on the Certificate of Compliance screen to the left. You will then see a closing report with a summary of some of the terms of the loan. Each of these items must say "Ready to close" to continue. If they do not say "Ready to close," then the borrower may require housing counseling before closing on the loan. If all of the items say "Ready to close," then you can proceed to create a closing certificate. On this screen, you will enter the data that will actually appear on the certificate of compliance, which gets recorded with the mortgage. This is where you will enter the PIN, property address, and identify the borrower and the lender. You should ensure that all the information entered on this screen matches that contained on the mortgage. Please be sure that the print address and print lender boxes are checked. After entering this information and hitting Create Certificate, you will be able to view the Certificate of Compliance as a PDF document by re-entering the PIN, and then you can save and print it. Violations of the APLD. A violation of Article 3 of the RRPDA by a title insurance company, title agent, or escrow agent is a violation of the Title Insurance Act and the Consumer Fraud and Deceptive Business Practices Act. The department may also revoke or suspend a title insurance company's or independent escrowee's certificate of authority or a title insurance agent's registration or issue a fine for each violation. Pursuant to the Title Insurance Act, any violation of the provisions of Article 3 of the RRPDA constitutes a business offense that subjects the party violating the same to a penalty of $1,000 for each offense. This has been a brief summary of how to obtain a certificate of compliance. For more information, here is a list of useful websites, which will be available on the description with the video. First, we have the APLD website itself, where we have news items and frequently asked questions that you can peruse for additional information. Once you have logged into the website, you are able to see the training materials that are available to guide you through the various screens we have reviewed today, as well as some additional functions you may need to perform within the APLD. The law I have been referencing throughout this presentation, the Real Property Disclosure Act, has a link to the act here so that you can read and review it. Finally, there's a link to the APLD News and Reports section of the Division of Banking's portion of IDFPR's website. There we have some additional information on APLD, as well as the semi-annual reports that we issue about the program every 6 months. Finally, this slide contains my contact information. Please feel free to contact me if you have additional questions, thoughts, or comments to share about this presentation. My contact information is also available on the homepage of the APLD website, www.ilapld.com.